Ladies and gentlemen, this is Product Innovation Show, yet another episode with your guest host, Sergey Ross. And I'm here with Liisi Soots, who's a product manager at Veriff, which is a verification engine. She's been a PM for the last few years, working on automating identity verification process. Liisi, pleasure to have you here. Welcome.
A pleasure to be here and talk about some of the things that I'm working on and about data world and AI world.
We'll talk a lot about it today. But the first one that I want to start with this one. Your first job entry on LinkedIn is a fraud intern at Skype. How did you end up there?
So basically, I have family connections with Skype, and when I finished high school, I was looking for places where to go for a summer. So one of the things that was really hot during that time was Skype. And I ended up in the fraud team. I think and from there, kind of the passion around the fraud and the passion also around data and looking at patterns has increased, because there I saw really that you catch the fraudsters through patterns and how to find them, how to automate them, how to build it up. So yeah, I think everything started from there, and it was really first great experience into the world of fraud and bad people in the internet. But like all the other first jobs, I think I didn't do so much the interesting things. But what I mostly did was data entry on the chargebacks, and basically after the 2 months that I was there, eventually the guys automated the process that I was doing. So in that sense, I was in the other part of the world where I'm right now. So right now I'm working on automating process, but at that time I was the person doing the process who afterwards was automated. So nice thing to see where world is growing. Like my job as an intern went away after that.
Well, they say, and you told me before that the best way to build something is to fake it till you make it. So at first the human is the one that pulls the strings, and then maybe there's somebody else or something else behind the curtain.
Yeah, exactly. I think like a lot of the AI system or automatic systems are not like so clever, but they're trying to automate piece by piece the easy things that are possible. And sometimes we cannot do everything fully as human does, but we can do 90% of it. Then it's a lot of the times already really great.
You're now PM on the other end of the whole spectrum. You're AI product manager at Veriff. What do you do there?
Yeah, so in Veriff is a startup in Estonia. In reality, we're like going to scale up already. So we just did a Series C. Like you mentioned before, we are in identity verification world. It's really hot world. Everybody wants to know who are you talking to in the internet, making sure that internet is a safe place to be. So we are also working towards that. But basically, to simplify what we are doing, so if you are going across a border from one country to another, you usually have a border guard, and the border guard looks at your face, they look at your passport or ID card or whatever you have with you. They try to understand if the document is really real or you're trying to fake it. And you're trying to understand if you really are the person you are telling that you are and entering the country. So this is what we are basically doing also in Veriff. And this is the job that also humans are doing a lot. And we are like piece by piece automating that process. So to scale up, one of the really crucial things is to also automate, because this means we do not have to hire tons of people or tons of board guards, basically. And then I am there trying to figure out what are the things, process for doing this kind of work that humans are doing? What are the pieces that we can automate? And how to make sure that we most efficiently use the automation side and human side, because both of them have really good benefits. So I think they kind of support each other.
Right. So Liisi, is the idea to use this software for governments, or not only governments? It could be anyone, any company that needs verification.
Yeah, I think the government example is just nice example, because I hope most of people have gone across the border and done this. But for example, if you want to open a bank account, then you would need to go to the office of this bank to really get the bank account open. But why can't you maybe open bank account without going to there, but doing virtually? This is exactly one use case. Like to open bank accounts, and like to open wallets, like this is really like Bitcoin wallets or crypto wallets. It's a new big topic.
I was going to say.
Yeah, cryptocurrency. Yeah, and it's a new big topic. Like we don't have, like I would say, like the biggest crypto companies who have the wallets in them do not have offices in each country, but they still have clients all over the world. So how they get the clients? They do this verification of their clients online. So we are working towards that, and yeah, there are a lot of different use cases where you need to tell you basically who you are, and I think they are growing step by step as we want to make also internet, like I said, safer. So it would be like glad to know who is commenting in forums, that maybe sometimes some people can
be like bots.
Badly use basically this freedom, in a sense that in some cases it's good if you know ahead who are you talking to, and this is the places where this verification of KYC process can be added.
Lots of use cases, of course. Now you wrote 2 articles on Medium, which I like them both, but I want to start with the one, I think the last one that you wrote, or it was the first one. Yeah, it's probabilistic versus deterministic world. Let's talk about the concept. What does it mean? Probabilistic, I'm having a hard time pronouncing that, and deterministic world. And we are looking at it as from the product manager perspective.
Yeah, I have described, been working with the automation and AI and machine learning a lot in the past years, and I have seen how regular product managers who are mostly working with UIs or not so much with the data itself, being part of the product, that how we are thinking differently. And this is one of the things how I see how to describe it, that I would start with deterministic world, is that we always know what will happen. So you can tell that if I click on a button in a UI, I will end up in the next page. Or when some data is entered somewhere, then it will end up in database. So a lot of the times when we think about classical software engineering, then we have these kinds of things that are already told to us, that product managers, if they are thinking about the product that they are building or writing tasks to the engineers, they usually write these kinds of things, that I want this user story to happen. Where the probabilistic world, if basically, it's basically if then. So if something is there, then do this. And yes, exactly. Yes. This is the user stories. It's how you write the user stories. I, as this kind of person, want to do these things. And how you do it, if I push this button, I reach the next page. But if you come down to the probabilistic world, this is the mindset that there is no if else. that there is basically the if is something that is not always known. Let's take an example. I'm mostly working with pictures. So also looking at pictures, understanding our videos, understanding what's there. So my viewpoints are also determined by that. But what we are working on is that I see a picture, do something if there is a face. But like the if is basically if you see a face, or from audience side, do like translate this from English to, I don't know, Spanish, if you feel that it's English. But how do you feel that it's English? How do you see that it's English? These are the things that we as humans are kind of putting together in our mind, but there is never like deterministic thing that it's always this or it's always that. So when we are talking about probabilistics, we are solving the problems in a mindset that it's never 100% if and else. It's always, we kind of try to get most of the use cases solved with our product that we are building, but we're never ever getting 100% of the things right. So if I want to know that there is a face on the picture, I already know I can't 100% of the times know that it's a face or is another face. So when I think in the probabilistic world, I as a product manager need to understand that I cannot have the product 100% working like we want to. So I need to start thinking, what are the kind of percentages where I want this product to work? What is useful to work? And a lot of the cases, I think, was also really important is to focus on what happens if I get wrong. So what will happen there? Because we know kind of really kind of surely that at least when you're first starting to build a product, you always have mistakes. And what will happen when the mistakes happens? What will happen with the product, the user experience then? So,
yes. So if we take, Liisi, if we take example of English into Spanish translation. So you have an AI that you would teach to get a feel, quote unquote, of, okay, let's say 70% probability, AI thinks this is English. Then in that scenario, would the logic go to if then? So if, let's say we determined 70% threshold, that means yes, then do this. And if no, do that. And then if wrong, if the AI actually became wrong, then probably further down the line, it does something. Is this the way to think about it?
Yeah, so the think about it is also, like I said, the if else is always there. So when you do enter to Google, then it's guessing the language. If you do Google Translate, I mean, from English to Spanish, it tries to check what language you're trying to enter. So it's trying to guess usually what language there are in this suggesting to you. It works a lot of the times correctly, but yes, what is there is that usually there is a model or algorithm that tries to guess what language it is, and then it's exactly the same if-else that we have on regular software engineering, which is if it's English, do this. If it's Spanish, do that. But the question there is that underlying statement of what, from where you get the if true or false. So basically, the if sentences, this is a probabilistic word, and you cannot 100% be sure that something happened. And one thing to take into account why it's in a sense harder talking about the problems or talking when the machine is not working the way you want is that you cannot know if the machine today right now is working wrongly or not. You have to build a system in a way that if it's, you don't exactly, I would say, like maybe a good example is also animals, if you try to show the model animals and it's trying to learn animals, and if a new animal comes in, for example, they know really well lions and tigers, but if a giraffe comes in, it would just maybe categorize it also as lion, but during that time you don't know that they categorized it as lion. You have to have it somehow figured out. In Google Translate example, it has all suggestion that I think it's English or I think it's Spanish, but you can always overwrite it. So that, for example, is how Google has solved it, that people who are using the tool can override it. So these are the things you have to take into account, that you cannot be 100% sure that the things that you're suggesting are really correct things.
Well, in other words, all of it comes down to that if you are AI product manager, it's a lot harder than the regular product, because everything is, in a normal product, you have degrees of probability, but here you have degrees upon degrees of probability.
Yeah, I think like that's exactly the thing, like how also like what degree you want to this input basically from that model, that like it's really, all we like to say that we have to be 100% accurate on everything and everything has to be there, but you have to do trade-offs, and a lot of the time, and also the more better model you want, the more accurate model you want, it harder is to get that. So maybe you even just need a model that is kind of getting it right. I don't know, 70% of the times it's better than 50-50. So maybe it's already solving your problem. So kind of understanding where are you using that model? Is it already okay that you are like a little bit improving it? And not putting too harsh like also requirements for that product that you're basically building.
Liisi, I'm going to ask you a very simple question, which is just to understand how would you think about it. If somebody asks you, how do we make a machine do what a human can do in AI context? How do you start thinking about it?
Well, first, it's definitely understanding what the humans are doing, what they are looking at. So making their task into smaller pieces. And then I think it's kind of has been the standard now that a good AI task to solve is something that humans can do with 1 second. It's like, if I can do something with 1 second, it's really good thing to do. But now the question is, if we have, yes, it's so simple that basically as a machine can do it. There's kind of good validation. But a lot of the things are, like if you talk about verification, that is the passport right? It's not 1 second tasks that humans also can do. Some of them maybe are, but how to split the tasks into the 1 second subcategories then that humans are doing, and how to split the tasks into logical pieces that the machine can solve, and also is like logical to humans if you want to incorporate both of them. Because humans are really good at having broader understanding and doing a lot of logical connections between things. But machines are not good at it at all. So if they have a new use case that they have never seen before, that for humans might be really, really logical way to solve something, they don't know it. So it's one thing to take into account all the time, that how to split the task into smaller pieces. For example, on our case, like I told, we do document verification. One of the things that it seems stupid for humans to think, but it's like, first we are looking at, there is a picture, is there even document on the picture? Then we are looking, where is the document in the picture? Then we are looking, what document it is? Oh, this is US passport, and this is, I don't know, German driver's license. And then we are going into like, aha, we know the document, we know where it is. There we check, okay, but where is the first name on the document? Okay, we check that, and then we read out the first name from the document. So this is like the step-by-step small things that we're doing.
A lot of steps.
A lot of steps, yeah. But for humans, it's like, I see that document, it's first name. Okay, maybe if it's new document, you don't know it. But it's kind of, it's hard to tell what is going on and why, or like hard to at least first grasp what are the things that are there that we have to take into account. I think the same with probably driving a car. Like if you are driving a car, you're so used to driving a car, but you don't think that, okay, in reality, where is the road? Where are the road borders? Where are the other cars? Oh, there is a human. Is the human on the crosswalk? One thing it is, I think, really hard if talking about these kinds of driving use cases. It's hard to determine what is the intention of human. I think this is like, if you are on the world itself and seeing what people are doing, you kind of understand if they are like looking at you and going over the road or what they are doing. But if you're looking at it from the camera, a lot of the times it's hard to tell what is the intention of the person. It's kind of the gut feeling we have when driving. Or like, oh, there's another driver, they want to pass me. You kind of get the gut feeling how they're moving. But I think we're getting there. But like you can see that all the small pieces, where are the details, where people are moving, we don't think about them every day. They're somehow in our minds and combined together. But right now, we're building these things. We have to basically make all of it into pieces and understand how our brains are working in reality, in a sense.
Well, we don't realize so many things, like you said, that we do completely subconsciously, and then you actually need to show the machine, to teach the machine how to actually it's supposed to think about it, quote unquote. Now, I'm going to ask you this. I'm curious, what are your thoughts? There has been reports that Apple is planning on launching their fully autonomous vehicle by 2025. Do you think that fully autonomous vehicles could arrive that early, or it's going to get pushed until later? And maybe if you don't know specifically about Apple, if we look at autonomous vehicles in general.
Yeah, I think I'm not sure. I'm not sure they are autonomous fully percent everywhere. I think they can be autonomous on some places. For example, if I assume they are US companies, so we are talking about US. So,
yes, we are talking US.
Yeah, so they are like, you can see traffic there. US traffic is a little bit different. If you go to Italy drivers are working a little bit different. And if you go now to India or some Asia countries, you can see the traffic is way different there. So I think they cannot be 100% autonomous in that sense. So yes, I think if we optimize the problem into smaller space that we want to be in US, when there is some standards of how the cars are driving, a lot of the US, most of the US, they're not like so much smaller streets in a sense that, for example, we have in Europe where you're driving in old towns. So it's a lot of like broad streets and a lot of suburbs in where, for example, again, in Europe, maybe we don't have these kinds of suburbs around. So I think if you optimize the problem into this space, I think they can reach that. But this would be like really US specific, and maybe with some other places it wouldn't really work.
But the other one is, there's been these conversations for a while, and I think they're not going away, that AI is going to take over the world, the machine's going to kill the humans, quote unquote, and the world is going to end. And then Elon Musk has warned you. There's lots of videos like that on YouTube. There's lots of conversations like that among the AI people. What do you think about AI taking over? Like, is it really overblown? Is it people not understanding that we're really far away? Oh, just curious to know what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think we are really far away. Like I just mentioned before, you have to right now really specifically tell what the machine needs to do, and you have to build tons of different things on top of it. I cannot right now see in like near future that will change. Definitely, we can take the AI or automating things can take away a lot of jobs. For example, the job that I did when I was first intern, like exactly the thing. We don't need that somebody person. We just create the model and it's easier. I think what will happen is that creating those things will go way cheaper and way more widely used, that we still don't use widely all of those things. It's kind of like, I think it's said it's a new internet, the AI things, that basically all the industries in the world can be shifted and changed, from factories, farming, all the jobs that, a lot of the jobs that we are doing every day in the offices. A lot of it can shops, like well, probably we don't need so much shopkeepers anymore. Do everything self-service, and also checking that people are not stealing anything, so we can do all of these things with automation. But yeah, I think today it's too far away, so it's not happening in the next years.
Right. I want to ask you about unhappy flows are more important than happy flows. This was something that you talked about. This was one of the articles on Medium that you wrote. It was around AI development. What are unhappy flows? What are happy flows? How do they interact? And why one is better than the other?
Yeah, so like you mentioned before, what will happen if we don't get, the machine does not do the thing that you wanted? So these are the things that a lot of the times, like they happen in the regular software engineering also. So usually it's incident or it's some big bug. But with machine learning, you basically know that, for example, 10% of the times, I'm always wrong. So it's kind of like the percentages of getting something not correctly is way higher. And usually when you start up building something, they are higher, and then slowly they get smaller, the ways where you do mistakes, because you kind of can patch things up and also make the models better. But why I think it's important is exactly that what will happen when you don't get to, like a person gets to unhappy flow. Is it, how problematic is it for the person? How you solve that case? Because a lot of the times we want to, like, we did happy flow testing and everything work, but what's there important is that pretty big amount of people go also to unhappy flow, and you need to figure out what to do with that flow or how to handle those people. So for example, if, what example I can think of?
Well, maybe something that came to mind, and you tell me if that's actually makes sense. Blue screen on Windows comes up. I don't know if it's still around, but that's what it's been, what it's been known for. Number pops up. Hey, call this number.
Yeah, exactly. These are the things you have to think about. Basically, what will happen if something breaks? But like, yeah, maybe one thing is a good example is like, I don't know, like you have some app that is recommending books for you. So you have to think that there is two ways things can go wrong. For example, Sergey, you want to read some books. There is two ways. So first is that you get books that you don't really like in the review if you're scanning for books. Another way is you get books that you basically would like to read or are suitable for you, but you will not get them in the list. So you as a product manager need to a little bit figure out what is the better case first to do. So should I recommend to Sergey books that he doesn't like? Well, it depends. I would say most of the time no, because like otherwise you wouldn't use the service if you get like too many random books I recommended to you. Yeah. But if we will miss suggesting you some books, you will never know because you didn't get them to list. So it seems way simpler that, okay, let's agree that this is the more unhappy flow that we like, and the other one is less unhappy flow. So these are the things to think about. What are the unhappy flows we like more? Why it's important? It's really way easier to create the model that prefers one of them. And it's because of this implementation and how you will build up the product, and it's way easier to get the product perform better. So these are the things to think about.
Now we talked, Liisi, with you about biases, and that conversation could be an episode in itself. And we specifically talked about that, and you brought up that excellent point that AI algorithm by its nature is biased because people are biased. We'll have certain experiences in life that create a certain view of the world. Then we write the algorithm or AI algorithm, and it actually inherits the certain biases that we as humans have. How does that, can you actually create an algorithm AI that is unbiased, or there's always going to be some degree of creator's bias in it?
Yeah, I think bias is a really interesting topic. It's really a lot of talked about, but there is not a clear definition like what is non-biased model, because that depends where do you use it. So a lot of the cases, the biases come up because we use the model in environment that is a little bit different to where of the data that it was trained from. So good example, I think, children are basically models. So if you take an Australian child and ask them, when is Christmas? A 3-year-old, they probably will tell you Christmas is when the sun is the highest and it's the hottest. And if you ask somebody in Europe that's, okay, 3-year-old, when is the Christmas? It's when it's the coldest and when it's all the time it's snow. Does it mean that who is biased now? Depends where we're using it. So I wouldn't say that the Australian child is wrong. No, they are not wrong. They're just biased towards where their environment is in. So, and the same thing is with all the models. Like you mentioned, yes, we are all biased. This was a good example how children are biased. In everyday life, we feel biased with topics like discrimination and the stereotypes. So we feel the bias and we see it, but it's inside ourselves that is also going to the algorithms in a logical way, or because we are building them. It's just that it's easier thing to point to a model that you are bad rather than the human that you are biased. For example, in most of the tech companies in the world, engineers are male, and most of the times. So are all the engineering companies bad because they don't have 50% of female and 50% of male? Or they are biased towards male. But why? Because in the environment, there is basically more just men who are going to engineering school. So it's kind of interesting topics because we could call it discrimination, but the question is it discrimination? So yeah, I think we are always looking that our models are performing well in the environment that they are. They should have the data from the environment and that the model was built with. So if you build a model with the same data, usually and exactly from the same distribution, this is where it's great. If they get shifted, then it gets harder. But I think it's also maybe last comment, it's also good to think that everything is biased like ourselves, but the main thing is that we are most of the time doing everything correctly, that the mistakes are so small that we are doing also as humans, that we are doing mistakes, that it's not really influencing everyday life. So this I think makes us also good, that we acknowledge these things and we most of the time work the way we do.
You were, at least you were describing the bias, and you talked about the countries, and something that came to my mind right away. I'm originally from Ukraine, right now based in Canada. You're in Estonia. In Estonia, like there's always this stereotype that you guys are a lot more relaxed. You're not in a rush. If somebody follows that stereotype, of course, it's quite dumb because it's not true and it's very general. You're like, well, if we develop an app for Estonian people, then it doesn't have to be fast. It doesn't have to be responsive. It can be a little bit slower because you're in a siesta mode all the time.
Yeah, and I think it's good bias in the sense that you have some understanding how we look like or how we act, but it doesn't mean that it's correct for everybody. We have also really fast people, and maybe exactly it's bias. We think Finnish are really slow, so it's so it's always going to the north. I don't know where Finnish will tell who is slower, but.
That's where the Christmas is the coldest for sure, and Sweden.
Yeah, maybe they will still the Swedes are lowest, but yeah, it's.
Liisi, any final parting thoughts that would love to leave the audience with? Anything around AI? Anything around product management? Maybe advice for product managers, or anything that I haven't asked you, but you wish I did.
Yeah, I think maybe that's. I think it's really, really growing topic. We need way more product managers who are working with data science and machine learning, and we call them now as AI PMs. They can come from both ways, from data science, people learning how to be a PM, or a PM learning how to do data science, so learning the methods. So I think right now we have really, really good already topics regarding how to learn how models work, how to build models. So definitely can check out them in Coursera and Google them. We don't yet have really good standards in the world around how to do AI product management, how to do AI product model building. These are growing. We all probably, when like the software engineering came into play, I don't know when it was, how long it took them to find Scrum. Now everybody's using Scrum, but probably it will take us, as from AI side, also way longer. Scrum doesn't work really well with AI product management. So one thing to take into account with that is that the life cycle of getting something ready from the AI side is way longer, and it's a lot of the times unknown. So it's not that I have a roadmap that in 3 weeks we have this model, because a lot of the times it's like, okay, I need 3 weeks, but I don't even have data. Then you have to look for data. Then you have to annotate the data, so basically label the data so that the model would know what to learn. And this might already take 3 weeks. Plus, afterwards, you might realize that, the task that I gave is not doable for the machine. Like I said, the 1 second rule, it's kind of rule. Maybe this is too hard, so you cannot make it work. So I think the unknowns in this field is way, way bigger. It's growing fast, so it's really, really interesting. But I think right now it's kind of like, okay, we have this thing, how we make it work, that there are not really good practices yet how to do the AI product management.
Fantastic. Any other resources, Liisi, that you'd recommend people to check out beyond Coursera? Anything that you found helpful for yourself that maybe would be worth looking at? Maybe books, courses, audiobooks, anything that would make sense?
Yeah, I think there is. Okay, I will. There is the deep learning AI. I would. Oh.
I was going to say you're gonna look it up.
Yeah, I looked it up. I was just double checking that I tell it right way. So I would suggest deep learning AI.ai courses. There is a lot of courses. The first is AI for everyone. So if you want to understand what is working, they are all go there. They are telling a little bit how things are working, what are the different roles, what kind of data you need. So I think starting from there is like the best resource there is. If you don't want to go really in depth into mathematics and technical things. So I think there is also borderline that the product managers, well, you could learn how mathematically everything works. I have learned it in uni, but I think it doesn't give you too much advantage on being a good PM. That from PM side, you need to know how the things go together. What are the things you need to help out the team with so that they can work with give you a product. So there are a lot of other things. Also that you as a PM, like we talked a little bit about metrics and understanding the bad workflows, but
Right.
or unhappy workflows, but you cannot tell somebody that, hey, please tell everybody that if they're wearing a hat, that do these things, or like give me a model who detects hats. Because a lot of the things what you have to do is yourself look at the data and tell this is a hat and this is not a hat, this is a hat and this is not a hat. Because when you are in this role now, you cannot have the user story, you have to have the data. So data is really important. Also, you looking at the pictures, video files, describing what you need. And like I said, metrics. So what are really the things that you want to achieve? So metrics are really important. And if you have better understanding of some basic machine learning and data science quality metrics, it's easier for you to make the team work better.
Fantastic. Lots of great takeaways. We will link all the things that all the resources that you suggested, Liisi, in the show notes, so if people could grab it. And we will also add a LinkedIn profile for your profile that if anybody wants to connect, they could do so. Thank you so much for an interview. It was amazing.
Yeah, thank you.